Okay, if you are in Math 7 Accelerated, we are working from the Advanced 2 textbook. If you are in Math 8, we are working from the Course 3 textbook. We are doing lesson 4.3, example 1, which can be found on page 160. Okay. So the book gives us this linear equation. And they ask us to graph the linear equation. Well, we've been doing this for 2 weeks. We know how to do this. We create our table. There's our x. Here's our equation. Our y. And it gives us the ordered pair. Our x and y together give us an ordered pair. So at this point, I know I get to pick my x's, and I need a negative, a 0, and a positive. Since I have a fraction and my denominator is 2, I want to use a compatible number with 2. So, or a multiple of 2. So I'm going to use negative 2. And then I'm going to substitute negative 2 for x. So a negative and a negative is positive, and 1/2 of 2 is 1. 1 plus 0 is 1. So if x is negative 2, y is 1, and our ordered pair is negative 2, 1. Now we know we need a 0. So x is 0. So we are going to substitute 0 for x. And that's kind of nice because anything times 0 is 0. So when x is 0, y is 0. Look at that. Now we know we need a positive. And once again, since I've got this fraction with a denominator of 2, I'm going to use positive 2. It's compatible. It's a multiple. It makes it a lot easier. Okay. So we are going to substitute 2 for x. So we have a negative and a positive. That's negative. And 1/2 of 2 is 1. So y equals negative 1. So when x is positive 2, y is negative 1. So my ordered pair is 2, negative 1. Now we have to graph this. Okay, we've been doing this for a couple weeks. We can do that. Let's graph this. Negative 2, 1. 0, 0. 2, negative 1. And we use a straight edge to connect our points. They are not dots, they are points. Dots are a gummy, fruity candy. These are points. And we've conquered our first objective. Graph this linear equation. We have graphed this linear equation. The second thing we've been working on is slope. The second thing we've been working on is slope. And we know slope is m, and that is equal to rise over run. Okay, so we're going to pick 2 points. It doesn't matter which 2. I'm going to pick these 2. It looks like they join right here. My rise, I'm going down, so that's negative. So my rise is negative 1, And my run is to the right, which is positive, 1, 2. So my run is positive 2. So it looks like my slope is equal to negative 1/2. So my slope, which is m, is equal to negative 1/2. Now we know there's another way to find slope. Another way to find slope. Because we know slope is the change in y over the change in x. The change in y over the change in x. And that means y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to pick 2 points. I like these 2 points right here, negative 2, 1, and 2, negative 1. And we're going to label these points, x1, x2, y1, y2. So now it's just a matter of substitution. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay? So we have negative 1 and negative 1, which is negative 2. 2, and we have minus a negative. That's a negative, and a negative is positive. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So here, it looks like our slope, which is m, is equal to negative 1/2. Okay, are you guys ready to have your mind blown? The correct answer is yes. We said our slope is negative 1/2. We showed that our slope is negative 1/2. Take a look at our equation. We have a negative 1/2. The coefficient that's attached to x is our slope. It has always been that way. The coefficient that's attached to x is our slope. And that can be shown when we graph the equation or by using the formula and 2 points. The other thing we've been working on is proportional relationships. We talked about a proportional relationship has to go through the origin, which means in a table like this, we would have the ordered pair 0, 0. And a proportional relationship would have 0 right here. So in a linear equation, if this is 0, on a table, if we have the ordered pair 0, 0, and on a graph, if we go through the origin, that means it's a proportional relationship. It's proportional. So those are the 3 topics that we've been dealing with for the past 2 weeks. Graphing a linear equation, figuring slope, the 2 different ways to find slope, and is the relationship proportional or not? So let's summarize this. A proportional linear equation. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 0. The fact that this is 0 means that it's proportional. We said this is our slope, and we think of slope as m. So y equals mx. And we're not going to bring this down because plus 0 is plus 0. We don't need to show that. So here's our slope. This is the equation for a proportional linear equation right here. Y equals mx. So that kind of pulls everything we've been doing together. Graphing linear equations, finding slope, and proportional relationships. So let's apply this. What does that mean? Well, let's do a problem from the book. Let's do an example. Okay, right here. The cost Y in dollars for X gigabytes of data on an internet plan is represented by Y equals 10X. Graph the equation and interpret the slope. Okay, I'm not exactly sure what interpret the slope means, but I do know how to graph the equation. So let's do that. So we know a proportional linear equation is Y equals mx. And if it's proportional, the plus 0 is invisible. That plus 0 is invisible. We don't need to add that. We know m is slope. And in the equation they just gave us, y equals 10x. So m is slope, and it looks like our slope is 10. But what does that 10 mean? I don't know. Let's figure it out. The first thing they asked us to do was to graph this equation. We need to graph it. So we're going to create our table. And they said X, they told us X was gigabytes and Y was cost in dollars. I like to label my X and Y so that I know what I'm dealing with. I know what I'm working with. So if I'm dealing with gigabytes, can I have negative gigabytes? I can't have negative gigabytes. That doesn't make sense. So I don't need to deal with negatives. My first number can be 0. So if X is 0, we're going to substitute 0 for X. Oh, if X is 0, Y is 0. So my ordered pair is 0, 0. So 0 gigabytes costs me $0. Well, okay. What about 1 gigabyte? So we're going to substitute 1 for X. So 1 gigabyte is going to cost me $10. Okay. So my ordered pair is 110. Well, how many will 2 gigabytes cost me? 2 gigabytes. Well, let's substitute. Let's substitute 2 for X. Y is 20. So 2 gigabytes is going to cost me $20. So we created our table. Now let's graph it. My x-axis is horizontal, and they said x was gigabytes. My y-axis is vertical, and they're telling me my y is cost in dollars. Okay. So I'm looking at my ordered pairs, my x's. Those are pretty small numbers. I can do these by 1. 1, 2, 3. But when I look at my y's, we have a 0, a 10, and a 20. I do not have 20 bars going up. So I'm going to label these by 2's. Okay. Now I need to graph my points. 0, 0, 1, 10, and 2, 20. We're going to connect those points with a straight edge. So this was 220 and 110. Okay, we took care of the first part of the problem. They asked us to graph this linear equation. We've done that. But then they ask us to interpret the slope. Okay. Here they're telling me slope is 10, but what does that mean? I don't know. So let's do what we do know with slope. We know rise. So it looks like if I start at this point, I'm going up. And I'm going up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay. My run looks like +1. My rise is +10. So my slope is equal to 10. Well, this isn't telling me anything new. I already knew my slope was 10. That's what it told me here. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, let's talk about it. We know that slope is equal to rise over run. I should color code that for you. Rise over run. And we know that the rise is the change in y. Well, my y is cost or dollars. The run is change in x. And my x is gigabytes. So what does all of that mean? Well, for every $10, we get 1 gigabyte. That's what it means to interpret the slope. Slope is rise over run. It is the y over the x. That's why it's always a good idea to label your x and your y. It will help you create your graph, your x and your y. We said x was gigabytes and y was dollars. So what this means is rise over run, rise $10, run 1 gigabyte. For every $10, we get 1 gigabyte. And that is the same case here as well. We are going up. For every $10, we get 1 gigabyte. That's what slope means. Slope means the y over the x. That's what slope means. And then we can also point out that this is a proportional relationship because my line goes through 0 and I have the ordered pair 0, 0. So if my line goes through 0 and I have the ordered pair 0, 0, it means this is 0, which means it's proportional. So this is everything we've been working on for the past 2 weeks, all pulled together.